Here are 10 Spanish words that unlock 1,000 plus sentences. Número 1, ser. La palabra ser en español means to be in English. Now be careful. We have two different ways we can say to be in Spanish. We have ser, and the next word on our list is estar. Now, the number one thing you need to remember to know the difference between ser and estar is that ser is permanent, estar is temporary. So, for example, yo soy Nathan, okay? Yo soy Nate. I am Nate. That is a permanent thing that is not going to change. Or I could say something like, yo estoy en casa. I am at home. Yo estoy en casa. So, ser is permanent, and we use it all the time in Spanish. Now, ser is, I don't know why I say that with that accent, ser is what we call an irregular verb in Spanish. Now, the ironic thing is that irregular verbs in Spanish are used all the time. The reason we call them irregular verbs is because they follow irregular conjugation patterns. So a verb like hablar, meaning to speak, follows regular conjugation patterns. So let's say I want to speak in the present tense. I could say hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, and hablan. Whereas with the verb ser, it follows a different conjugation pattern. It's irregular. So we would say soy, eres, es, somos, and son. You could also say sois if you're speaking a Castilian Spanish. I'd also like to mention that in this video, I'm not going to talk about subject pronouns. I'm going to assume that you already know what they are. So, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, ellos, ellas, ustedes. I'm going to assume that you already know how to use those. So, now that we know the verb ser, we can learn all of its different conjugations. Now, I'm not going to go over all the conjugations of ser in this video because it would be a much longer video than it needs to be. But if you simply learn different conjugations of a verb like ser or estar, now you can form basic sentences. So for example, yo soy maestro. I am a teacher. All we need to do is learn verbs that are very frequently used, and then we combine them with vocabulary that is relevant to our own lives. So let's say you work in a hospital. You can learn these very important verbs like ser or estar, querer or tener, for example. And then you just use those in combination with adjectives or nouns or whatever that you would use in your workplace all the time. So, for example, yo soy enfermero. I am a nurse. Or yo soy maestro. Tú eres doctor. For example, let's take a look at more examples. Es lunes. It is Monday. Hoy es lunes. When we're talking about days in Spanish, if you want it to be singular, just say el. So for example, el martes would be Tuesday, okay? El martes. But if you want to say los martes, you make it plural now it becomes Tuesdays, okay? So el martes, Tuesday. Los martes, Tuesdays. And it's the same with all the other days in Spanish. So el lunes, los lunes. El miércoles, los miércoles, for example. So on and so forth. Somos de México. We are from Mexico. Somos de México. We are of or we are from Mexico. Ella es mi amiga. Ella es mi amiga. She is my friend. Es difícil. It is difficult. Es difícil. So all I'm doing here is just using the verb ser in the present tense, and then I'm combining it with different nouns and adjectives. It's really that simple. All right, now the second word is estar, which also means to be. But remember, it is temporary. It is not permanent. So, ser is permanent, estar is temporary. For example, estoy cansado. I am tired. Estoy cansado. I'm not permanently tired. I'm just tired right now. So you would never say soy cansado unless you're trying to say that you're a tired person. That's just who you are. Which, hey, you know what? Maybe that is who you are, okay? But we would pretty much just use estoy cansado. An example here I could give to you is we could say estoy feliz. I am happy right now. That's temporary. Or I could say soy feliz. Okay, so the difference is soy feliz. I am permanently happy. I am a permanently happy person. That's just part of my character. Or I could say estoy feliz. I'm happy right now, but I'm not going to be happy forever. There's going to be a point where I'm sad and I'm upset and I don't feel good. Estoy feliz. Okay, temporary, permanent. ¿Dónde está el perro? ¿Dónde está el perro? Where's the dog, right? ¿Dónde está? Right? This is talking about location. It's temporary, okay? Wherever the dog is, he's not going to be there forever. Okay? You know what? Maybe he's going to stay there. And that's the funny thing about verbs like ser and estar. You could argue and say, oh, well, this and I don't know about that. And often it might come down to your personal perspective. But when it comes to location, we consider it to be temporary, so we're going to use estar. Está enfermo. He is sick. Está enfermo. He's not going to be sick forever. It's a temporary thing. Está enfermo. ¿Estás listo? Are you ready? ¿Estás listo? Now, here's another interesting example. When I say ¿estás listo?, that is temporary. I'm asking you, hey, are you ready? But if I say ¿eres listo?, it sounds like I'm saying to you, are you smart? The word listo can take on two different translations depending on the context. If I say ¿estás listo?, I'm saying, are you ready? Whereas if I say ¿eres listo?, I'm saying, are you smart? Next verb is ir, meaning to go, and we use it all the time. So, the conjugations of ir are voy, vas, va, vamos, van. For example, voy al trabajo. Voy al trabajo. I go to work. Now, what's up with the al in this sentence? That is simply the preposition a combined with the article el. So we put it together. So we wouldn't say a el, we would say al. It's why del taco is called del taco. De el taco. But we don't say de el, we can just combine it and say del. Same thing with al. Now, why do we say el trabajo instead of just trabajo? Well, because el trabajo is a noun. It is a person, place, or thing, right? El trabajo, okay? Whereas if I say trabajo, it might sound like I'm saying I work or I am working, which would be a verb. That's why we need to attach the article. We need to attach the el, okay? So, voy al trabajo. You wouldn't say voy a trabajo because it sounds like you're saying I go to, I work. ¿Vas al cine? ¿Vas al cine? Are you going to the movie theater? So same thing, right? El cine, right? Al, a plus el, al, okay? ¿Vas al cine? Are you going to the movie theater? Notice how you can learn some very, very, very important verbs in Spanish, and when you learn a little bit more vocabulary, now you can create very basic sentences. It's pretty cool. Vamos juntos. Vamos juntos. Let's go together, or we go together. Vamos juntos. Ella va a la escuela. She goes to school. Ella va a la escuela. She goes to school. Quiero ir contigo. Quiero ir contigo. I want to go with you. Remember that when a verb is in its infinitive form, it means to blank. An infinitive simply means a verb that ends with either AR, ER, or IR. So in this case, the infinitive is ir. That's infinitive, meaning to go, right? Hablar, to speak. Bailar, to dance. The next very important word in Spanish is tener, meaning to have. Now, this could mean to have something or to have to do something, for example. For example, tengo hambre. I am hungry. Tengo hambre. I am hungry. In Spanish, if I want to say something like I am hungry or I am cold, I wouldn't say I am hungry. I would say I have hunger or I have cold. So, tengo hambre, I am hungry. Or, tengo frío, I am cold. Tengo calor, I am hot. Tengo sed, I am thirsty. ¿Tienes tiempo? Do you have time? ¿Tienes tiempo? Once again, the verb tener, we're simply just using it in the present tense. So, tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, and tienen. If you can just memorize those basic conjugations, now you can form a bunch of different sentences. Ella tiene una idea. Ella tiene una idea. She has an idea. Ella tiene una idea. Now, in Spanish, I don't need to always use the subject pronoun when I create sentences. So I don't need to say ella tiene una idea. I can just say tiene una idea, as long as I have context. If I randomly say to you, tiene una idea, you'll be like, who has an idea? Who are you talking about? But if we were talking about Josefina, for example, then I could say, oh, Josefina, blah, blah, blah. Tiene una idea. She has an idea. Tenemos una casa. We have a house. Tenemos una casa. Right? So all we're doing is combining common words with common vocabulary. And now we can create sentences just like that. And finally, for the verb tener, we could say no tengo dinero. I do not have money. No tengo dinero. The word no is very, very common in Spanish, just like it is in English. And we'll typically put it at the beginning of sentences. So, no, blah, blah. No soy de México. I am not from Mexico. No estoy en la calle. I'm not in the street, okay? Número 5, el verbo querer, meaning to want or to love. Now, students often ask me, Nate, what's the difference between querer and amar, right? I've heard that they both mean to love. Well, if you were to say to someone, te quiero, that means I love you, but it's not as strong as saying something like te amo. Te amo is typically reserved for people like a romantic partner, someone like a romantic partner. Whereas with your friend, you could say something like te quiero, like, wait, te quiero, hermano, something like that. Whereas you'd use something like te amo with a romantic partner, maybe your parents as well. Okay, so for example, quiero café. I want coffee. Delicious. ¿Qué quieres hacer? What do you want to do? ¿Qué quieres hacer? Okay, so hacer, also a very common verb. Now I'm just saying, ¿qué quieres hacer? What do you want to do? Very basic words, but you can form sentences. Él quiere dormir. He wants to sleep. Él quiere dormir. Now, what would the sentence mean if I said quiere dormir? And I didn't say él quiere. I just say quiere dormir. What would that mean? Okay, well, it can mean different things. It can mean he wants to sleep, she wants to sleep, or usted, right? You, formal, want to sleep, okay? Native speakers often do not use subject pronouns when speaking. So they'll just say quiere dormir, and you have to understand based off of context clues who you're talking about. Queremos ayudarte. Queremos ayudarte. We want to help you. Queremos ayudarte. Next, hacer, meaning to do or to make. And I use this verb all the time. Hago ejercicio. I do exercise. Hago ejercicio. Or a very common phrase using the verb hacer is ¿qué haces? ¿Qué haces? Literally, what do you do? But what we mean to say is, what are you doing? Remember that in Spanish, the present tense can kind of behave like the ing verbs in English sometimes, okay? So those are called the progressive verbs in Spanish. So, ¿qué haces? Could mean, what do you do? But it can also mean, what are you doing? We will use it for something that is in the near future. For example, if your mom calls you and says, hey, come here, come into this room, you could say something like, voy. So voy means I go, but it can also mean I am going, like, yes, I'll be right there. Okay, so it's something that's going to happen in the near future. Hacemos pan. We make bread. So now notice how the translation has gone from to do to make. How do we know when it's to do or to make? Just context clues. So in English, I wouldn't say we do bread. I would say we make bread. Hacemos pan. Ella hace la cama. She makes the bed. Ella hace la cama. Tengo que hacer esto. I have to do this. So notice how now we're using the verb tener, right? I have to do this. Tengo que hacer esto. Esto is also a very simple word meaning this. Esto is when there is no gender and you don't necessarily know what you're talking about. Or este means this, masculine, and it's singular. And esta meaning this, feminine singular. The next two words, and I've counted them as one, are por and para. Por meaning for and also para meaning for. Now, they have different use cases. Por can mean because of, due to, through, by, whereas para is typically just meaning for or in order to. You can think of para as you're trying to achieve something with para. There's intention behind it. Whereas por is often used for exchanges or saying, oh, this is because of you or because of that or whatever. So for example, camino por el parque. Camino por el parque. I walk through the park. Lo hice por ti. I did it for you. You could also think of that as I did it because of you or due to you. Now, what if I was to say, lo hice para ti? I made it for you. That could work, lo hice para ti. But por sounds a little bit better here because it could also be an exchange. Lo hice por ti. Trabajo por dinero. I work for money. Trabajo por dinero. The idea is that there's an exchange going on. I work, and in exchange, I get money. I feel like that could be a modern day rap lyric. I work, I get money. No? All right, well, I'm just going to stick to teaching Spanish. All right, moving on. Es para mañana. It is for tomorrow. If I were to say something like es por mañana, it sounds like I'm saying it's due to tomorrow. It doesn't really make sense. Es para mañana. Like I said, with para, you're trying to achieve something. Also, I'd like to say, I have an entire in-depth lesson inside my Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy. Click the link in the video description explaining por and para, because I'm not going to do it justice in this short video. Vivo para viajar. I live to travel. Vivo para viajar. Once again, I'm trying to achieve something there. Vivo para viajar. Estudio para ser médico. I study or I am studying to become a doctor. You can also think of this as in order to be a doctor, in order to become a doctor. Para sometimes takes on the translation into English as in order to. Como, meaning as or like, can also mean I eat, depending on the context. For example, eres como un hermano. You are like a brother. Eres como un hermano. Once again, we've got the verb ser there. We've got this word como, and then we've got a noun, hermano, right? Eres como un hermano. Trabajo como profesor. I work as a teacher. Trabajo como profesor. I work as a teacher. And finally, como mucho. I eat a lot. Let's be honest, we do use the verb comer quite a bit in Spanish because who doesn't love to eat? Que. Now, que can mean that, can mean which, can mean who. Once again, it all depends on the context. So for example, el chico que canta, the boy who sings, right? In that situation, it's better to use a translation of who. Sé que tienes razón. I know that you are right. Sé que tienes razón. I know that you are right. Es algo que me gusta. Es algo que me gusta. It's something that I like. Es algo que me gusta. La mujer que vive aquí. The woman who lives here or that lives here. If you're not sure when to use que, just try to think of it as that or than. But of course, sometimes it has that nice translation of who. Dijo que no. Que no. When someone says que no or que sí, it just means no or yes. For example, dijo que sí, he said yes, or dijo que no, he said no. Que no. Literally, he said that no. One more word, and then I want to surprise you with a cute bonus word at the end. De, meaning of or from, can also mean about. For example, es de México. He is from Mexico. Él es de México. He is of Mexico, or he is from Mexico. La casa de Juan. Juan's house, right? That's how we say it in English. But in Spanish, we're going to say la casa de Juan. We need to use that possessive de there. La casa de Juan. Un vaso de agua. A glass of water. Un vaso de agua. A glass of water. And finally, we have the most important word in the entire Spanish language, corazón. If you have ever listened to music in Spanish, then you know that arguably the most used word in songs in Spanish is the word corazón. And if you're in Spain, corazón. For example, mi corazón late rápido. My heart beats fast. Mi corazón late rápido. Te quiero con todo mi corazón. I love you with all my heart. Te quiero con todo mi corazón. Or you can call someone tu corazón. So, eres mi corazón. You are my heart. Or you are my sweetheart. Eres mi corazón. You also say corazoncito if you want to take it to the next level. Corazoncito makes it small and cute. You can say, eres mi corazoncito. You are my little heart. You are my little sweetheart. Bueno, muchas gracias por ver este video. Click the link in the video description to join my Fluent Spanish Speaker Academy y nos vemos muy pronto. Hasta luego.